Well, hello peeps, here we have my Solo RBG, aka Battleground Blitz tier list. And now I think it's a good time to do the tier list. We've had enough time on the mode, and I think yeah, I think it's a safe time to talk about it. I think there's also a few variables that I'm gonna use here. So first is gonna be, of course, spammable 5 second CC on a low or a low, how do you say, cooldown 5 second CC. That's like a big thing on any map, especially any map that has capture points. Absolutely huge. I am gonna count for current tunings, of course, so this is gonna be a tier list that is kind of, how do you say, based on the current patch and how do you say, current strength of the classes, right? Team fighting, skirmishing, and solo capabilities as our kind of final variable, or just how the class works in the fighting styles of you know, 8 versus 8, where you usually in a 3 versus 3 environment are constantly 3 versus 3. Here you might be 3 versus 3, 8 versus 8, 7 versus 7, 1 versus 1, right? So rating the classes in those modes of fighting, right? Now, first, let's go over the tanks, because I think tanks are not good currently, and there's just one tank that is like good. Put, I think, Blood DK just because it's a DK spec, and DKs are good in BGs. Sorry, this is Havoc. Vengeance just does not feel like a tank. Every time I've faced a Vengeance DK, sorry, DH, I've destroyed it. Every time I tried playing Vengeance, I got absolutely destroyed. So it does not feel tanky. The same for Blood. Like, general thing for tanks, they don't feel tanky. The one outlier, of course, is Bear. Guardian Druid, absolutely insane as far as tanking and also just being a Druid spec. So it has a lot of the utility of a Druid, spammable 5 second CC. Cyclone is insane in team fighting, skirmishing, and solo plays. Yeah, so definitely gonna rate them very high, on top of the fact that they are also just tanky. The only tank that I feel like we are not able to kill and destroy very quickly is DPS classes. So definitely gonna rate Guardian quite highly. It might even be S tier. Like, S tier might be like an actual good rating for it, but I think I'm gonna put it into A just because tanks overall I feel like are not, yeah, that great. But Guardian is definitely the outlier and the one tank that you want on your team for sure. Going into protection, I would also put Dog, just because magic damage is so good right now, and protection just absolutely sucks. This protection as well, like, do you ever want it on your team? No. It also does not feel tanky as well. It has the cooldowns, but people know how to play around protection defensives, so it's like, yeah, just a dead spec. And yeah, Brewmaster lol, like, as well. Like, I don't know, it's like, might be C just because it has some like interesting stuff it can do, but yeah, it's like, this is how I would generally rate the tanks in the Solo RBG environment. So now we're just gonna rate the rest of the specs in, how do you say, no particular order. Probably just gonna start off with DKs here. Absolutely amazing spec in BGs in general, but in the kind of Solo RBG or Battleground Blitz environment, I feel like they do have a little bit lacking towards compared to some other specs. So Unholy, definitely high, definitely like an A tier, and Frost I'd put into C as well. I don't feel like, I feel like some other specs are stronger, and we really have to look at the specs. We really have to look at those variables that I talked about previously. So does not have a 5 second or a low CD 5 second CC. It does have the grip, of course, but it does not have like good solo capabilities. So both of these are not really good at like 1v1ing other specs, especially like there's like quite a few specs that are quite good into like Death Knights, right? So it's just not good 1v1 time for them. So there's just quite a few, how do you say, problems that they have compared to some other specs that are gonna rate higher, even though in the arena environment you would probably rate Unholy a lot higher, right? It's just simply that it lacks the solo capabilities, and it lacks the 5 second spammable CC or 5 second low cooldown CC, right? Havoc, S tier maybe, but it really depends on the map, I would say. So like maps that are like more teamfight focused or skirmish focused, like Silver Shard Mines, things like that are definitely in Demon Hunter's favor, and that's where Demon Hunters shine. But maps with like right flags and stuff, that's where Demon Hunter like does not really like perform the best. Like it's good at 1v1ing the majority of the specs, but there's also just quite a few specs that absolutely can, you know, dumpster, not just dumpster a Demon Hunter in 1v1s, but also just like trick them around and CC them and whatnot and like waste their time. So it's 1v1, it just feels like it's a little bit lacking, but simply because of how strong they are in team fighting and skirmishing, and there's maps that are just, how would you say, focus on that. I would still rate the Demon Hunter highly and definitely into the S tier. I want to talk now about the Dragon. Let's go for the Dragon. Dragon's also into S tier. They're not maybe as good in skirmishing environment if there's like not a healer there. Absolutely amazing in team fights. Absolutely insane in solo environment because of spammable sleep, right? They can just spam the sleep on you and get the flag, or they can just, you know, 1v1 you. Like most melee specs are gonna have trouble in a 1v1 with the Dragon. The Dragon really starts to like lose out in like longer engagements and like in engagements with specs that do like most magic damage, I'd say, right? It's just very hard for usually melees to just keep on a Dragon in like that period where a Dragon can just absolutely destroy most melees, and then maybe like paladins who can bubble and stuff like that, right? Now we're gonna move into the druids, just because I feel like this is like the ultimate spec, absolute giga chad of a spec in Solo RBG Battleground Blitz environment. The only outlier for the druids would be Feral. I feel like Feral, it's just not tuned good, right? It's very squishy, I would say lackluster in team fights, very strong in skirmishes and like can do some good stuff solo, but I just feel like very lackluster in team fights, and simply because of the tunings I'm gonna put it like into top of C tier, let's say, but definitely not good overall. On the other hand, Boomy and Resto are S+ tier as far as I'm considered. Boomy can fight solo, skirmish, team fight, no problem. Same for Resto, absolutely unkillable healer. Have the 5-second CC, spammable CC Cyclone that is absolutely insane in solo, team fight, and skirmish environment. So there's just not much, how would you say, not much to say. I think druids are the, as far as I'm considered, one of the god classes of this mode, and really depends on the tunings, right? But like balance is tuned quite highly right now. Resto is tuned quite highly right now, so yeah, they can definitely be in S+ tier. Balance also has like so many different moves, like in team fighting you can root beam the entire backline, you can just do so many like interesting things, so definitely a big picks in Solo RBG mode. Okay, moving on to the dragons here. I'm gonna rate them as well now. I just don't feel like these two other dragons, Preservation and Augmentation, are good. Preservation is definitely better. I'm gonna put it like into B. See, again, it has very good team fighting, good skirmishing, and a solo healer, you know, I don't think this is a good solo healer. Like if the other solo healers that we're gonna rate, yeah, they can definitely solo situations like Disco as well, that we'll talk about a little bit later, but Preservation, I just kind of a team fighting AoE kind of healing maybe spec, but overall just not that good compared to the rest of the cast. Augmentation as well, just kind of tuned poorly. It's good, it's definitely better, right, in these kinds of environments than like 3 versus 3, but I just don't know, I feel like it's definitely like C tier-ish, maybe even D, like maybe it's even so bad that it's like D, but just because of the fact that you might be buffing some really good specs, I'm gonna put it into C, right? Let's go for the mages. Mages, man, I hate these specs, but I do have to rate them fairly. I am gonna put S tier, absolutely 5-second CC, spammable CC, many forms of CC, absolute godly in AoE, godly in skirmish, godly in solo situations. So, I mean, actually for me, Frost Mage is just S+ tier, but have to be realistic. Something like Fire is not that good, and Arcane, I would not rate Arcane as good as Frost, simply because you know, having like a range more team. I don't know how they say, like, I just hate Frost, man. Let's be honest, I'll be biased. I'm biased. I'm a melee player and I hate Frost. Frost for me is S+ tier. Okay, let's be honest here. I was gonna make up some reason, but no, let's be honest here. I hate Frost Mage. It's S+ tier always. Let's do the Hunters. Survival Hunter. Hunters really great for this environment. Absolutely amazing spec for this, but a little bit held behind by, let's say, tunings and like personal survivability compared to some other specs. So they're absolutely amazing in teamfights. Absolutely amazing. So actually, let's go first. BM, absolutely amazing teamfights. So I'm still gonna put it into like A. Has good solo potential, really good solo potential. It just kind of, I'd say, on the weaker side compared to a survival and marksman. I might actually, no, I'll put marksman as well into A tier, but survival for me, I think can just do all of it while also being just an absolute amazing hunter spec that can 1 versus 1 pretty much every spec in the game if you're a good survival player. So it might be S+ tier in the future if it gets, like, let's say, a little bit of a buff on survivability or more buff on damage. But yeah, generally speaking, amazing spec. The reason why marksman I rate lower, I mean, marksman just absolutely destroys in teamfights, the best out of the 3, but it is a little bit lackluster in the solo situations. So if you're, how do you say, yeah, trying to do some solo stuff, I feel like it's something like survival is just a lot more consistent, you know, in the way it plays, and so you're definitely gonna rate it a little bit lower. And also its survivability just being a little bit lower than survivability hunter. Let's go for paladins here. Let's see, retribution. So red, just because of the tunings currently, I don't want to rate it kind of. I can't really rate it too high. I'm gonna put it into A tier still, just because red can actually rotate its stun quite quickly. So it has a 5-second low cooldown CC. It has immunity and stuff like that, so it can get out of CC and like stop caps. So it's very good at defending, good in team fighting as well. Just red doing generally does okay damage. It's just kind of right. It's kind of in between A and B, I would say. It's a little bit lackluster on the defensive side, even though you're out of dampening, right? It just kind of feels like the dampening is not as big of a deal, right? How do you say, when you get out and you're like, okay, when 5 classes are hitting you, you're dead if you don't bubble anyways. So if you don't have one of your immunities, it's like it's the same stuff as in like a battleground, oh sorry, in an arena environment anyways. So yeah, I can't put them higher than this. I just feel like red struggles a little bit survivability bias currently, and does not do as much damage as like the rest of the cast. So like bottom of the barrel A, or like B, top of the B. Okay, now moving into one of the god specs of PvP, and of course one of the god specs of this mode, the rogues. They're definitely extremely strong. Sub I would even put into S+ tier. Outlaw, again, rogues are not a little bit lackluster in teamfights, but Outlaw can kind of, I think, still bang in teamfights. So yeah, still S+ tier, I think, still very good. On the other hand, Assassination is just not as survivable, does not have its kind of cooldowns as often, defensive cooldowns as often as the other 2 rogues. Is a little bit better in teamfights than Subtlety, but I still can't rate the rogue spec, man, low. So rogues, it's definitely like an A tier, or maybe even like an S tier still, just because it's a rogue spec and absolutely like amazing toolkit for skirmishing and solo play. And of course, as being Assassination, it is still a little bit better, I would say, in teamfights than something like Subtlety. Well, a sub can really do some stuff in teamfights as well. Don't get me wrong. Like, it can protect, and it can also attack like backline, so it's still very good. So don't get me wrong there. It's just that Assassination can cleave better for sure. Let's go into the Shamans. S tier, definitely S tier for Elemental. Absolutely just amazing. The only reason why it's not like S+ tier is just because they lack like something like spammable, really truly spammable CC, right? Like Hex is not spammable. So like might be even like A tier because of that, but just because of how much cleave this spec can do and like damage in general, and having the knockback on certain maps being absolutely disgusting. Eye of the Storm, right? So it's just a very good spec overall. As a Shaman spec, it's gonna rate, I think, generally higher. I would say Shaman specs kind of rate higher in BGs than they rate in arenas, just because their totems can affect more people, and they're just, yeah, they can kind of do more effect, I think, I would say, in a BG environment. Same for Enhance. I'm gonna put Enhance top of the B tier here currently. I think Enhance is actually pretty good. Elementalist build can do quite a bit of damage. The Elementalist build also benefits from having more targets, so you're doing more damage in a battleground environment than you're doing in an arena anyways. So it's very, very strong, I think, overall. Just, I don't think it can go into A tier because it doesn't have as good solo capabilities, simply. But overall, its teamfighting and skirmishing is absolutely amazing. Resto as well. Actually, I'm gonna rethink. I'm gonna put this into C tier. Put this into D tier, and yeah, Resto is like B. I feel like it's not, it's kind of mid. Like any healer that you can kill is kind of mid, let's say, that you can kind of simply kill, and I feel like Resto is one of those that is a lot easier to kill, and you can even solo kill it. So unfortunately into B, it's definitely, I would still say it's more useful than a Dragon Preservation Invoker. So for me, definitely you know, better than a Preservation Invoker. That's why I deranked these. Going into Mistweaver, let's go with the monks. We're mostly doing them in a row. They're gonna go for Mistweaver. I think Mistweaver is good. Mistweaver is good. Just the monks lack some utility that they would have usually. No, not utility, how they say. They lack the variable of having like spammable CC, right? But I think they're still really good just because of the tunings. Same for Windwalker, just does amazing damage. So definitely better than Havoc as well. Like in most situations, I would say, like it can do something crazy damage, burst damage. So, but like if actually like both of these specs can do something crazy damage, AoE damage. So I don't know, it's like which one is better? Like let's say like Windwalker, just because it has a little bit more burst, so a targeted burst, right? But overall, I think, yeah, both of these are very strong. Windwalker mainly because of tunings. Like, we have to be real here. It's not like the monk class is like better than some of these other specs in the kind of environment as a spec, as a class, but it's just that the current tunings are very good. Mistweaver can just heal a lot, playing Fistweaver, or even just, you know, staying behind and casting, right? So both of the modes are really good for the monk. Okay, now we're gonna rate my favorite class in BGs, all-time favorite class, the Warriors, of course. B tier, not in B tier, but just putting them here for as a placeholder. Arms, absolutely my most enjoyed spec all time. I am gonna put it into S tier, actually no, top of A tier, simply because it doesn't have the spammable 5-second CC and kind of a little bit lacking that department, but it is extremely good at bodyguarding, it is extremely good at doing AoE damage. Rallying Cry is absolutely amazing with Battlefield Commander talent, so yeah, I can't rate the Warriors low. Same for Fury. I'm gonna put it into like bottom of A tier, simply because I feel like it's weaker than Arms, but it's not in the, how do you say, in the BG environment, there's no dampening, so Fury's self-healing kit is like fully unleashed. So Fury is actually extremely tanky compared to arenas, right? So might actually rate them higher than some of these specs, just simply because Fury can be extremely tanky in the BG environment. And as you maybe saw my recent video on Fury, I was chain killing people very good, so you can kind of, I'm probably gonna put a pop-up for that. So yeah, Fury is just, I think, really good in the BG environment. Yeah, definitely better than some of these other specs. Let's move into Warlocks, because Warlocks are also one of the Giga Chads, I would say, one of the God tier specs. Destruction, definitely S+ tier, absolutely amazing in solo, absolutely amazing in teamfight, absolutely amazing in skirmishes. Have lay on hands basically by using a soul shard and eating their cookie. The cookies for your team, teleport for your team. Yeah, just Warlocks in general are a godly class for this mode. But we do have to count for tunings, so something like I'll put it into S tier. I feel actually Demo might still be like S plus tier. Just I feel like it definitely does less damage than a Destruction Warlock, so I'm gonna put it into S. But Affliction I can put into A kind of safely. I just feel like it does not. It does have all that utility, but it does not have the instantaneous damage, and it can kind of do damage in the long term. But you know, I feel like burst is where it's at, especially like in PvP, and even in like a mode like Battleground Blitz, where you have like mostly skirmish fights and like 5 versus 5, or let's say 4 versus 4, and then you have like people running around doing fights on the other, you know. It just kind of does not work out, I think, for Affliction to have, as it works out, let's say, if it was like a normal BG where people are just gonna zerg 10 versus 10, right? Where it can just cleave and then cleave for a very long time, so... But it's still a Warlock spec, absolutely godly utility, so definitely A tier still. Let's do Holy Pala. Holy Pala, I feel like he's a little bit better than Restos Shaman, but I don't think it's like A tier. Might be A tier just because of like all the different like cooldowns that Paladins have, like the defensives that are very strong can just kind of completely block off from people getting killed and stuff like that. It can't be used on flag carriers and so it does have like some limitations. I'll put them into A tier. Moving on, actually I'll put it into B tier. Yeah, I just feel like it does not. It's a little bit like, it's better than Resto Shaman for sure for me, but it is a little bit lacking still. You can still kill it, right? After it cycles out its cooldowns, bubble or whatever, you can just kind of kill it as well. So definitely not as good as like the Priests, which Disco, Godly, and Holy, man, it might be even S tier, but I think A, just generally it's not considered as good, but I feel like it's unkillable for some reason as well. Like both Priests feel unkillable. So I'm gonna put it into A tier, just because you generally don't see it as much, and like Disco is a clear S plus tier, man. You can't kill it, it heals very good, it can do damage, it can PI, yeah, it's just all around extremely good spec. They do not have like spammable CC, but Fear is on a pretty low cooldown, right? And if somebody trinkets the Fear, then you can, you know, get the flag or whatever, so absolutely amazing in that regard. On the other hand, Shadow, it is a little bit lackluster, and I'll put it into top of B tier. Definitely better than some of these specs here, but I just feel like it does not do the damage of the other specs above, does not... Maybe even does not even do the damage of these specs here, but it does have the Priest utility, the Mass Dispel, really good CC, Silent Stun, Fear, so... I don't feel like it can rate really low. It's just that the current tunings kind of hold it back, right? If it was doing a little bit more damage, I'd move it into A tier for sure. So peeps, that is my tier list for 10.2 for BG Blitz, aka or Solo RBG, however you want to call it. If you have any complaints or disagreements, agreements, do comment down below. Like, comment, subscribe, all those things the YouTubers want you to do, and have a nice day.